Welcome everyone. Members of the public are advised that the meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the live stream recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. Nillumbik Shire Council respectfully acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the country on which Nillumbik is located, and we value the significance of the Wurundjeri people's history as essential to the unique character of the Shire. We pay tribute to all First Nations people living in Nillumbik, give respect to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all First Nations people. We respect the enduring strength of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and acknowledge the ongoing impacts of past trauma and injustices from European invasion, massacres and genocide committed against First Nations people. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people hold a deep and ongoing connection to this place. We value the distinctive place of our First Nations people in both Nillumbik and Australia's identity, from their cultural heritage and care of the land and waterways, to their ongoing contributions in many fields, including academia, agriculture, art, economics, law, sport and politics. And now I'll ask Councillor Payne to read the Good Governance Pledge.
Thank you, Mayor Ramcharan. As councillors, we're mindful of our civic responsibilities and obligations. We pledge to take them seriously and to carry them out with diligence and integrity. We know the decisions we take will affect the people and environment of Nillumbik now and in the future. We undertake, therefore, to make sound and principled decisions of lasting value in a spirit of fairness and for the good of all. We also pledge to serve the needs and well-being of the community and the environment in an open and honest manner and to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. We will now have a prayer, and I'll invite Father Stephen Rigo to do the prayer for us today. In January 2017, on the request of Archbishop Hart, the parishes of Sacred Heart, Diamond Creek and St Thomas the Apostle, Greensborough North, were partnered with the parish of St Mary's, Greensborough. Father Stephen Rigo was appointed as parish priest of all three parishes. The Catholic community in Melbourne is made up of a rich tapestry of people of all ages, cultures and backgrounds. They are united by their faith and love for God and neighbour. And their goal is to foster a spirit-led community which responds to the needs of its people and neighbours to live out their mission and vision of becoming a vibrant Christian community which proclaims the gospel and strives to be the face of Christ in the world. So thank you, Father Stephen.
Thank you, Councillor. God of love and creator of all that is good, you create us in your own image and hold us in being as you give us the privilege and capacity to be instruments of your creative love for the sake of the world. At this time, we especially hold in our prayer the many thousands around the world who have lost their lives, loved ones, homes and livelihoods as a consequence of wars and natural disasters, especially in Ukraine, Morocco and Libya, and ask that you enable leaders to vie for peace and peoples of the world to have a compassionate heart to meet the needs of survivors. As we approach our own referendum, we pray that our citizens may vote out of a sense of justice and informed minds rather than from fears. Thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. We thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honour of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us even so from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you've said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice with compassionate hearts. Therefore, I pray for our Mayor and for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for the assembled council. I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for compassionate justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, and personal peace in their lives and joy in their tasks. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in Nillumbik Shire. And it is in your most blessed name that we make our prayer, through Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Stephen. We'll move on to the next item, apologies, and we do have a request for leave of absence from Councillor Duffy, so I'll just look for a mover.
Thanks,
Councillor
Mayor.
Egan.
I'd like to move that Council accepts the leave of absence for Councillor Natalie Duffy from the 26th of September 2023 to October 23, 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre.
Yes.
Councillor Egan. Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Item 6, declarations of conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest, councillors? Item 7 is presentations.
Excuse me, Mayor, just through the chair, I'd like to note a conflict of interest in the confidential item, CEO employment matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. All right, I'll move us on to item 7, presentations. We do have one condolence for Captain Chris Murrays, and I'll hand over to Councillor Egan to read that out for us.
Thank you, Mayor. We were deeply saddened to hear of the recent passing of Chris Murrays. Chris joined Yarrambat CFA in 2002, and right from the outset his commitment to the CFA was unwavering. Whether it involved cooking hot dogs in the catering caravan or orchestrating an elaborate gala fundraising dinner and auction, Chris was there, wholeheartedly dedicated. Prior to that, he also coached junior football for over a decade. So many young locals know him as that as well. After several years, Chris moved to Doreen and transferred to Doreen CFA, soon after taking on the role of captain. He played a pivotal role in the remarkable transformation of Doreen CFA, elevating it from a tranquil rural fire brigade to the thriving entity it is today. Chris had an innate ability to step forward whenever challenges arose, approaching each obstacle with determination and fervour. This same dedication fuelled his efforts in firefighting, propelling him to positions of leadership. He ascended to the role of Vice President and eventually President of the VFBV District 14 Council, where he advocated for the interests of all fire brigades within CFA District 14. Chris also championed the cause of volunteers relentlessly, with one of his standing out achievements being his advocacy for presumptive cancer legislation for firefighters, a cause he championed even before realising its personal relevance to himself. Additionally, his instrumental role in enshrining the Volunteer Charter into the CFA Act has continued to be a source of benefit for volunteers even after his untimely demise. It's worth noting that Chris also worked tirelessly on numerous smaller, lesser-known individual issues. On behalf of Nillumbik Shire Council, we pass on our condolences to Chris's family, friends and CFA District 14.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. That was a beautiful condolence and very heartfelt for a very good man. I'll move us on to the next item, which is confirmation of the minutes, and I'll look for a mover. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. That Council confirms the minutes of the Council meeting held on Tuesday, the 22nd of August 2023 in Attachment 1.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Payne. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. That moves us on to petitions, and we do have one petition tonight. So I'll look for somebody to move that one. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move the recommendation that Council 1 receives and notes the More Lights Please petition relating to lighting in the Eltham Leisure Centre car park in accordance with the Governance Rule meeting procedure. 2, refers this petition to the Chief Operating Officer for investigation and response. And 3, notes that officers will advise the petition organiser of the outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre?
Thank
Councillor
you.
Payne?
I believe we're going to have questions to do with this exact petition shortly, but I note that we've received it and it is something we will investigate.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's certainly having lights and having a safe feeling of coming through the car park is really important, and so I support this petition and hope that officers can look into this quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is questions from the gallery, and we do have one question from Gillian Abati. Is Gillian in the room? Hi, Gillian. Thanks for coming. Question 1. Having submitted a petition and accompanying photos of the lower car park at Eltham Leisure Centre, which I believe is in dire need of lighting, I was wondering if the indicated inspection has been undertaken, and if so, what conclusions have been made. And question 2. If the inspection hasn't yet occurred, when might that happen? I am presuming that it would take place at night or early morning when the problematic issues are obvious. We have a combined response to both of those questions. So council officers will be visiting the site this week with an external contractor to undertake an inspection. Key findings will be shared for further discussion in the following week. And that is the only question we have tonight. The next item is reports of advisory committees, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Eyre?
Thank you. That council notes the minutes of the advisory committee meetings reported in attachment 1.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Payne? Councillor Eyre?
Thank you. Only just to say that if community haven't read them, it's a good idea. Keeps you up to date with what's going on in the community and what's been discussed at our advisory meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Payne?
I'm in excited concurrence with Councillor Eyre and support everything she just said.
Wonderful. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the quarterly risk and safety report, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Payne?
Happy to move that, Mayor Avtran. As per the papers, the recommendation that Council 1 notes the summary of the confidential risk and safety report as per attachment 1 for the quarter ending June 2023, and 2 resolves that the attached risk and safety report, attachment 1, remains confidential in accordance with section 3(1)(a) and F of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre? Councillor Payne?
I'll keep this quick just because we have many items to get through. I just want to thank Craig King and Craig Kamain for their work in helping prepare the risk and safety report. Notable things to pay attention to would be the bridges, the footbridges that we have lost and have had to replace. We have had a bump in our insurance. I'm sure that's happening across the board, commercially and domestically. But like all people at the moment, all organisations, we have to deal with our insurance and find that money somewhere. So again, thank you to the council officers and thanks for their work.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre?
Thank you, Mayor. I need to say that it's always reassuring when these sort of reports go through our external audit and risk committee. It has a number of external participants or members on the committee ranging from all different backgrounds, so it's always good to know that these reports are reviewed as well by them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Which moves us on to the next item, Bushfire Mitigation Fire Prevention Works Programme, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Egan?
Happy to move that, Mayor. Recommend that Council 1 notes the Bushfire Mitigation Works Program 23 to 24. 2 publishes the Bushfire Mitigation Works Program 23 to 24 on Council's website.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Perkins? Councillor Egan?
Thank you, Mayor. This is what I consider to be one of the most important things that we put out each year, especially considering the time of year and the fact that this is predicted to be quite a serious fire season. It's a massive piece of work because it's not just council. It involves getting together a whole group of, it's a bit like herding cats really, the number of people and the difficult bodies. We've got CFA, DELP, Melbourne Water, DOT, Fire Rescue, Vic, Parks Victoria, VicPol, and of course ourselves, and also the surrounding councils. So they meet at appropriate intervals over the year and they try and work out the best possible strategy for us considering our own circumstances in this particular part of the world. And what they do is incredibly important. They look after everything from vulnerable people in aged care facilities to isolated residents, accessing safer neighbourhood places during a fire, and a whole, like the list is huge. There's also a lot of mitigation in terms of slashing, box clearing, woody weed removal, a whole raft of things. So I'm very, very happy to support this latest plan and like to thank staff for the outstanding work that they do to protect us, especially in the coming season. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins? Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the annual report for Neighbourhood Safer Places, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you. I move that Council notes that as part of the annual review process, Neighbourhood Safer Places, bushfire places of last resort, are located at Diamond Hills Reserve, Oval, Greensborough, the Outdoor Performance Centre in Greensborough, Diamond Creek Community Centre, Diamond Creek, Yarrambat Park Golf Course, Club Rooms, Yarrambat, Hurstbridge Basketball Stadium in Hurstbridge, car park between Arthur and Dudley Streets in Eltham, Colandina Reserve in Greensborough, and they've all been assessed by the Country Fire Authority and have been found to meet the criteria for designation as Neighbourhood Safer Places, bushfire places of last resort. Just trying to work out the acronym. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Seconded, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins?
Thank you. Yeah, look, these 7 neighbourhood places, Neighbourhood Safer Places, bushfire places of last resort, haven't changed for about a decade. They came in as a result of some work done following Black Saturday 2009. I think these 7 sites have remained unchanged for at least a decade. They've been reassessed this year and found to be still compliant. So they, I suppose there's a bit of a disclaimer in the report that talks about them. They're identified as buildings or spaces within the community that may afford some protection from radiant heat, the biggest killer in a bushfire. They're a place of last resort in bushfire emergencies only. They're not intended to replace a personal bushfire survival plan. CFA advice concludes that everyone should have a written bushfire survival plan. The CFA also advises that there is no guarantee that people will not be injured or killed by fire or radiant heat when travelling to or sheltering at one of these places of last resort. They're assessed by council committees and formally designated by council. They're also assessed by CFA standards in the Neighbourhood Safer Places, bushfire places of last resort assessment guidelines. So, yeah, that'll do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan? Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the Creative Infrastructure Framework. I'll look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move the motion that Council 1 notes the draft Creative Infrastructure Framework as per Attachment 1 in preparation for community engagement. 2, endorses the Community Engagement Plan, Attachment 2, and undertakes community consultation for 4 weeks from the 9th of October to the 3rd of November 2023. And 3, considers public submissions at a future planning and consultation committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor Ramcharan. This proposal to take the Creative Infrastructure Framework out to the community asks the question, how can we use what we have to enhance our arts infrastructure? And it's partly the decision by council when we first came in that we probably could not get a large central arts hub built in Eltham for a multi-million dollar, tens of millions of dollars. What can we use in the Shire ourselves to increase our arts infrastructure? So the four main goals of this framework are to optimise what we have, to build partnerships, to reach out to the community, to celebrate our art collection, and to support creativity in the existing clusters and probably find some more clusters. Last night at the Arts and Culture Committee, it was suggested there were many clusters we were not aware of. That's probably true. But we are looking for spaces that we already have to help build our arts and creative community. We know that creative needs are not being met, that they are looking for creative places and spaces that we need to advocate, and our communications from council need to back this up. And we need a diversity of spaces for creativity, and in particular, 3 key spaces: where we produce art, where we consume it, and where we teach the skills of creativity. One of the points made in the infrastructure, one of the quotes was from someone that said, for a council that relies on its arts heritage, we don't spend a lot of money on arts and culture. Point taken, but I just wanted to point out the history of arts in the Shire has been a DIY history. So many of the artists came out here not because of a majorly funded arts infrastructure. They came here because land was cheap, like many artists do, and it built up from that basis. So we do want to take advantage of the creative people in the Shire as best we can with the resources we have. This is a 10-year lifespan, and it's good that we're looking forward to this. And we are seeking to inform, consult and negotiate with the community. So I hope the community can embrace this, can have their say, as we say, and let us know how we can use the resources we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre?
Thank you, Mayor. Really just wanted to encourage community to actually respond to the engagement plan when it comes out for consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the response to public exhibition of Planning Scheme Amendment C1490, the Heritage Review. And I will look for a mover. Councillor
It
Payne.
is myself, Mayor Rattray. I'm back in the hot seat. So I would like to move the recommendation that Council 1 notes the submissions to Amendment C1490 to the Nillumbik Planning Scheme as per Attachment 1. 2, resolves to include new attachments to the report, Amendment C1490, list of properties to be removed, Attachment 3, and Amendment C1490, list of properties to be amended, Attachment 4, to amends Attachment C1490 in accordance with Attachments 3 and 4, requests the Minister for Transport and Planning appoint an independent planning panel to consider unresolved submissions to Amendment C1490 pursuant to Section 23(1)(b) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Request Council officers recommend the heritage overlay apply to the entire site of 10 Diosma Road, Eltham, due to the pending assessment of cultural heritage significance at the state level. 6, request that officers notify submitters to Amendment C1490 of the committee's resolution and update Participate Nillumbik accordingly with the next steps in the amendment process. 7, brings the C1490 panel report as an outcome of the panel hearing, once available, to a future council briefing for council consideration. 8, prepare a letter of advocacy to be sent to the Minister for Consumer Affairs and the Minister for Transport and Planning in seeking that the proposed zone overlay changes be included on the Section 32, the vendor statement, as required under the Sale of Land Act 1962, Victoria.
Happy to second, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Payne, and thank you, Councillor Egan. A long one.
Yes.
Back to you, Councillor Payne.
Good. I was waiting for resolutions 9, 10, 11 and 12 to appear on the next screen, but luckily they're not there. So the heritage overlay scheme is our responsibilities. This is one of those statutory roles that local government have to carry out. It is local government's role to protect local heritage sites. We know that many in the community were surprised, and not pleasantly surprised, to receive notification that their property was heritage listed. And for many, It felt like being told that your car is now a vintage or rare car and your insurance and registration is now going up. This is part of the function of local council, and to do this we have to contract consultants, experts in the field to inspect the properties, and often they don't get access to this. So we often have had people say they haven't had a clear enough inspection of the property. So we have gone to the community, we've heard the objections of those who feel adversely affected, and we have a list of revised recommendations from the heritage consultant. 5 of the properties have been removed, 8 are revised, 6 are retained, and 2 are awaiting recommendation. And the reason Tendiosma Road has been singled out is because that is still currently being assessed under the State Heritage Review. So we're just waiting to see what the result of that decision is going to be. So I well understand the passions of those who came into the PCC meeting who felt that they did not receive natural justice. This is a role of local government, and we are trying to make sure that we communicate with everyone as best we can. And I would read out addresses, but I'm just looking through the chair to see if that is something we are going to do at this point or not.
It's entirely up to you. The addresses themselves are not confidential.
They're not?
The names of the submitters are, so don't read that column.
I accept your challenge. Okay, so just to let you know that those properties that have been removed, I've got 3 minutes left. 144 Progress Road, Eltham North, 191 Cherry Tree Road, Hurstbridge, 23 Glen Park Road, Eltham North, 2 Hillmartin Road, Diamond Creek, and 162 Murray Road, Diamond Creek. Those properties where the revision has been proposed are 145 River Avenue, Plenty, 130 Laughing Waters Road, Eltham, 906 Arthurs Creek Road, Arthurs Creek, 14 to 16 Warringah Crescent, Eltham, 570 to 576 Main Road, Eltham, 183 Yan Yin Road, Plenty, 10 Diosma Road, Eltham, that of course has its own recommendation, and 61 and 61A York Street, Eltham. And those that are recommended to be retained, the address is the Eltham War Memorial Complex, which is 903 Main Road, Eltham, 200 Ryans Road, Eltham North, 52 Curragh Road, Yarrambat, 17 Coonong Crescent, North Warrandyte, 32 Pervesi Avenue, Diamond Creek, and the cemetery at 1165 Arthurs Creek Road, Arthurs Creek. And 2 properties about which recommendations are still waiting a decision are 405 Ryans Road, Diamond Creek, and 349 Diamond Creek Road. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm totally in support of this. I'm very pleased to see that those first 5 have been removed because they were the ones that incensed me the most. The other thing I'm really pleased about, it's now number 4 on this recommendation. I think it's moved to number 8, I'm not sure. About advocating to the Minister for Transport and Planning. No, sorry, it's number 8, one I'm talking about there, that one. To get a letter of advocacy to be sent to the Minister for Consumer Affairs and Transport and Planning. Even if you do the most due diligence you can when you're purchasing a property, you don't know that the property may be proposed in a future heritage overlay. So if we could get this to happen some way, or it will make people's lives a lot easier. They'll actually know what they're buying. At the moment they don't, and they can be totally blindsided, as were quite a number of the speakers at the last council meeting. So I'm very pleased to see that. Whether we can get it done, it won't cost them a cent, won't add to their $21 of interest per day, $1 million, but hopefully we can get that through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I think as a result of the objections, we've had a number that have been removed, 5 that have been removed, 8 that we're going to revise, 6 retained, and 2 awaiting recommendation. There's 56 that will go through to the panel hearing, if I understand it correctly. They were not objected to or not opposed by the occupant or the landowner. Have I got that right, Director of Planning, or thereabouts?
Through the chair, I'll
through the chair.
I'll allow the Director of Planning to respond to that.
I think it's pretty correct. It's fairly close anyway.
Thank you. Through the chair, the properties that we received no submissions to, so they're uncontested properties, they don't go to a panel. Only the unresolved submissions go to a panel. So all the ones in the attachment 4 will be sent off to the panel, and the other ones will hold over until the next decision of council, where you will adopt them and send them to the Minister for Planning for approval.
Thanks for that clarification. Certainly it underscores the importance of objecting if you don't like a heritage overlay being put on your property. There's at least 56 properties that raised no objection, so there's no panel hearing, and there's really almost no way back for those properties. So certainly good news for the 5 objectors that actually succeeded to get their property removed from the amendment altogether, and there was 8 where there were some modifications that would have been seen as positive to the objector, I'm sure. So that's all I wanted to say. It's just a lot of people didn't object, so it goes through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. Only to say that this has certainly been a long process. I think it started in early 2021. So I'm hoping that we're starting to get to the end of the process so that we can endorse or unendorse the properties, and that way also those who are living in those properties can also have some closure as well. For the most part, I'm really excited and looking forward to hearing how this turns out. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll speak briefly on that one. It really is wonderful to see this finally reaching this stage. It's been a long time coming, as Councillor Eyre mentioned. And this work is just so important for protecting the history and the heritage in our shire. There are so many special places here in Nillumbik. We have a vast, beautiful green wedge that we're all so lucky to have, but all throughout that green wedge and in our urban areas, we have some really special historical places, all of which are worthy of protection. And what we're doing today is we're putting a new protection on a whole range of those places across Nillumbik. So it really is a special thing to be doing. Once this motion has gone through, this will go to the state government and will hopefully be integrated into our planning scheme in its current form, although I'm sure the panel will see fit to make some changes here and there. That seems to be the way it always goes. But just knowing that we've got officers and some really wonderful consultants who can back up everything that we've put together here and really present a strong case to the panel about why these properties need protecting. I think that's really good. And thank you to all the officers who've put so much work into getting us to this point, and for all the work that is yet to come to finish this off. I note all the objections that we've received and all the submissions that we got at our Planning and Consultation Committee meeting earlier this month. And thank you to everybody who gave us input on what you know about your properties, because I think everybody's got something valuable to say. We all know a little bit of the secret history of our properties, and that only helps to add to what we've got here. Of course, we've got some people who don't want one of these overlays, and that's perfectly reasonable. But at the end of the day, planning is about getting the best outcome for the whole shire and protecting these places for everyone. And while it might not suit the individual property owners, it really is important to protect that heritage. But I feel like we've listened. Councillor Payne mentioned the properties that have been removed from the overlay following feedback from property owners, and the properties where we've seen fit to make amendments to what was originally proposed. So we've listened, we've made the changes that were asked of us where we saw fit to do so, and I think we're going through to this panel process with a very thoroughly thought out amendment. So looking forward to seeing the outcomes of that. All right, I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? And that one is carried. The next item is the renewal of the Yarra Ranges Tourism Partnership Agreement, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Egan.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to recommend that Council recognises the value of the Yarra Ranges Tourism Partnership and its benefit to the local visitor economy, and 2, commits to a new 3-year partnership agreement with Yarra Ranges Tourism to remain at $70,000 for year 1, with an increase each year based on CPI, all groups Melbourne.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I think this is a very, very worthwhile thing that we do, that we're now involved in. It came into fruition in halfway through my first term in council, but the value we get out of it, we just simply couldn't afford. We couldn't even pay someone. It would cost more than that just to employ a person to do what this does for us. Lots and lots of things. It's all listed there in the briefing, from trails. But one of the biggest things, I'm just getting to it here, is the DMP, which is the first ever destination management plan, which is specifically aimed at 5 different regions in the Yarra Valley, us being one. This has got, a value of over $300,000, so we couldn't have afforded to do this, but it's working out where we excel in tourism, what we need, and how to really focus what we do in the particular areas where it's needed. So a very worthwhile thing. There's a couple of things that not everybody's happy with, one of those being the, what are they called, Jeff? Kiosks.
Yeah.
And I think we're nearly all in agreement on that. So we might look at doing some other things instead of those. We're not really a kiosk type of area. So I think that's the only area that we aren't happy with, but everything else is very, very worthwhile. And as I said, we couldn't even employ a person to do what they do. So fully in support of this for another 3-year partnership.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, just like to support the motion as well. I agree with Councillor Egan that we certainly do get very good value out of the partnership, certainly more than the $70,000 per annum that we put in. The kiosk, I'm not quite sure that I agree on that aspect. There might be places in the Shire it's not appropriate, but there are 2 in Diamond Creek, and I've never heard any complaints locally about the one at the Rotary Tram or at Diamond Street, close to the toilets there. I think they serve a purpose, and it's just it's a way to I think easily promote activities in the Shire and tourism type events without having to use paper and the old-fashioned ways with boards. So horses for courses, it perhaps works better in some areas than others. But it is a good partnership. I know previously, before we entered into this arrangement, council would try to do its best, and a lot of it didn't seem to be that successful. A lot of money spent on collateral, big maps, Artisan Hills, trying to push that notion. If anyone remembers the Artisan Hills campaign, so I think the only people that ever did well out of those types of programs were the consultants who put that together, because once the consultants had finished with us, we had no money left to implement the recommendations of the consultant report. So this seems to work a lot better than those previous approaches, so I'm very happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to note that whilst the KPIs that are listed in the report in some areas are a little bit lower than what they had anticipated, I think we've got to acknowledge that the last few years has been really tough on businesses, really tough on the community with coming out of COVID and lockdown. And I think that we can't really look at those results without thinking more broadly. And I think that if we were to bring this back in-house after hearing from officers in briefings and things, is we would not be able to offer all the services that we get through this partnership. And as Councillor Egan mentioned, we have a destination management plan, which is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll speak briefly on this one. I unfortunately find myself in a position that I can't support the motion. I feel that it probably will get up anyway, and that's fine because councillors will all do what we think is best for the community, and we might not always agree on that. And so I may today be the one that stands out, but the majority decision of council is always the strongest one. But I feel I need to explain the way that I'm voting. Having read the report and the attachment, a number of KPIs have not been met. In fact, quite a large number of them. And I think COVID always plays a part in these things, but we're looking at the previous year here, when we have been out of lockdown. And a lot of these are digital anyway, and they still haven't been met. So it shows that goals are not being met. The other issue I'm seeing in the report is that the report talks about the amount of money or the amount of value that Yarra Ranges tourism supposedly brings to Nillumbik. It quotes it at $219,000. It also mentions that it's difficult to quantify the total dollar figure generated from the partnership. So even though we can't quantify it, we're putting it at $219,000. And it was Yarra Ranges Tourism themselves that calculated this. So I'm not seeing those numbers being backed up. And I'm not seeing, for myself, strong enough justification to commit council to another $70,000 each year to remain part of this partnership. The other concern that I have with it is a suggestion that was received from Yarra Ranges Tourism themselves that we advocate to weaken planning controls in the rural conservation zone. And while I think council should be all about supporting tourism, we're not about weakening our rural conservation zones. Those zones are sacred, and I think our community would agree. We love tourism, we'd love to encourage tourism, but that doesn't come at the expense of our green wedge. So that's why I won't be supporting the motion, but I think I probably will be on the losing side, and as I say, that's absolutely fine. We don't have to agree on everything. But I thought I'd be best to explain my point of view, and I think as a result of that, Councillor Egan will get a much-deserved right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's a couple of things. Just to grab your last point first, the destination management plan. I think you're being a bit mischievous, as the Director of Planning told us in our briefing that we've only seen the draft, and the new one does not advocate for any changes in our planning scheme. So that argument goes straight out the window. The other alternative, if we don't do this, is to employ someone. And as the CEO said also in the briefing, that $70,000 wouldn't even pay for a person to do it. And then in Peter Perkins' example, we wouldn't have any money left over to do anything. So I don't think your arguments hold up. And yes, we might have been out of COVID last year. We haven't recovered in any way, shape or form. Just look at the state of the state government and the billions we're out of pocket there. How on earth could any stats be even vaguely similar to, what we used to know as normality? It's not even real or rational. So I'm sorry, I don't support or agree with any of your arguments at all.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That one is carried. Division? We get automatic in the minutes. Okay, we'll do a division. Those in favour? Councillor Egan, Councillor Stockman, Councillor Payne, Councillor Eyre, Councillor Perkins. It's the first time that we're doing a division when the division's already automatically in the minutes. Those against? Councillor Ramcharan? That one is carried. All right. I'll move us on. The next item is the on-site wastewater management plan, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ramcharan. Yes, happy to move the recommendation that Council endorses the on-site wastewater management plan 2024-2029 as per attachment 1, and 2, instructs officers to commence implementation of the plan.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne.
Yes, this is another one of those we are the responsible authority things that local councils have to do. And one of the fragrant things that we have to do out here in the Greenwedge Shire, which is to make sure that our on-site wastewater systems or sewage systems are retaining sewage on the property boundaries and not posing a risk to the community or the environment. We have around 4,500 septic tanks. Many don't have records. 17% don't have any records. Around 1,000 can discharge close to the surface. And less than 20% apparently receive regular maintenance as required by the permit. So we face the problem of failing or older systems polluting the Shire. People may or may not be aware, but the EPA have declared a general environmental duty. It's a little bit like a duty of care. If you're an adult and you're a child, you have a duty of care, and we now have a duty of care for the environment. So council's role is to educate, regulate through permits and report to the EPA. So I support this motion and I hope that we can manage to update and make sure that our systems are clean and looking after the environment.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? And that is carried.
Excuse me, Mayor. Can I please get some advice before we move on to the next motion? Thank you.
Did you want to ask that through the chair, or are you just going to... Yeah, that's fine. I'll just give us a 30-second break. All right, I've been asked to temporarily adjourn, which is probably a good thing because we're going to be going for another while. We all like a little bit of a break, so I'll give us until 7:55. Okay, I'll bring us back. Thanks for your patience, everyone. I believe the live stream's still going. Don't worry, they couldn't hear you with the microphones off, but got the microphones back on now, so we're back in session. All right, I'll just pass over to Councillor Eyre briefly.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to disclose a general conflict of interest and remove myself from voting on the next item. And my general conflict of interest is my direct neighbour has made a submission in objection, and I don't feel that I can vote on this with a clear conscience. So I'm going to remove myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. So Councillor Eyre will leave the room for the duration of the item. All right, so that is obviously for 2 Bell Street, Eltham Urban Farm consideration. And I will look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor Atran. I would like to move the recommendation that Council 1 supports the proposal of an urban farm at 2 Bell Street, Eltham, and 2 authorises the CEO to provide written consent to a Local Food Connect to make a planning permit application.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne.
I can hear from the gallery groans and rather shocked reaction to a change in the agenda, and I find myself moving a motion that was not on the agenda when we arrived tonight. The reason I'm moving the opposite to the papers as per the agenda was that we could not find a councillor prepared to move the motion as per the papers. So that's why we have this alternate motion put up. Just to clarify, the vote on Fabros Field, there was a lot of misinformation, I think, in the community and a lot of lack of information. I think that's been a major cause of stress and conflict out there. So just to clarify, Local Food Connect is not a commercial operation. It's not a franchise. It's a local not-for-profit. It runs the Eltham Farmers Market. It's focused on sustainable food production. So there is no wider, darker organisation out there. Objections to the urban farm at Fabros Field, some were legitimate, some were slightly ludicrous. People started talking about the ghost of Murray Fabro and what he would have wanted, that it should be deliberately difficult to prove something about how difficult farming should be. From my point of view, I think the siting of an urban farm where farming took place makes sense, and I don't think it does impact passive recreation. The arguments that the passive recreation is a field where people benefit mentally and physically works both ways. Those who grow the vegetables and to have a farm there also enhance the kind of mental and physical nutrition of the local community. Council officers really are limited in what they can approve without the proper information, and that seems to me to be key to this whole application. The process was complicated by a letter that went to the state government, a grant of money that accelerated, gave a ticking clock, so to speak, to this motion. We have to go to the community to get their feedback. But I just wanted to reiterate that council officers don't have any particular set view for or against. They simply have to look at the application on its merits, and they struggle to get all the information, and information is critical to this. Those who objected to Fabros Field have legitimate concerns, and we must listen to those concerns. What is the land management plan? What modifications are going to be made to the shed? What about runoff? What exactly, in terms of square metres, does this application mean? So, the initial letter that let Local Food Connect write to the state government was not consent. It was simply not an obstacle to them applying for the money. This motion that I'm putting forward is also not consent. It simply does not stop the application moving forward. We know that there are powerful objections to this, and in a way, if the numbers had been much more clearly one way or the other, we wouldn't be having these concerns. We would know from the community what their decision was. I just wanted to reiterate that slightly more people approved the community farm than objected to it. And so on that basis, I would like to move the motion that we let Local Food Connect move to the next stage, As I say, this does not guarantee consent by the state government or by council. Council officers and the planning officers particularly have to work out if this passes the best and highest use test. And we know that there is a ticking clock on the funding received from the state government, and that Local Food Connect will have to work very, very hard to meet that deadline that they have. So it's not going to be easy. So I appreciate that people feel passionately about this. And on that basis, I would like to move this motion. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan.
Thank you. I'm happy to support the ward councillor in this decision. This is a great idea, however you look at it. It's just where it should go. That's the issue in hand at the moment. And we don't, as Councillor, I've forgotten your name. I'm a bit stressed tonight. As Councillor Payne has said, we don't have enough information to make an informed decision on this project. That's what councillors are for. We have to make decisions based on information, which means we are informed. And at the moment, we are not informed in any way, shape or form. We don't even know what size this is proposed to be. We don't know anything about it at all. There's many people in the urban areas that do not have anywhere to have a vegetable garden. When people make comments about taking it out to the rural areas, that's all fine and good, and we all have our own veggie gardens out there, but we have zero public transport in this region, as you all know. This is specifically for urban people, near public transport, for those people who live in apartments and townhouses and want outdoor activities. And yes, there's lots of groaning coming from the gallery, but can I have a bit of respect, please? At least let me finish before you start booing me.
I'll ask the gallery to be quiet while councillors are talking.
Anything to get kids outside in the fresh air, off their screens, is a good thing in my mind, and I 150% support this recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? Councillor Perkins?
Thank you, Mayor. Well. We started with one Eltham councillor short, and now we've got two. Unprecedented. You know, the Nillumbik in its history have normally had, 3 Eltham councillors in the chamber. We've now got one to decide upon a really, really important issue for Eltham. It's the submissions that made my mind up for me, really. It was the number of people that really value our passive open space, the number of people that sort of said how much they value it, how much they use it. It's used a lot more than I'd ever realised. Whether people of Eltham like to believe it or not, I'm sure there'll be much more development in Eltham, in Diamond Creek and our urban parts of Nillumbik, whether we like it or not, and we do not like it, but it's going to happen. There's going to be more medium intensity development. There's going to be more and more need for our recreation areas, our passive unstructured open space. That's exactly what this is. It's a good concept, but there are other lands in Nillumbik that do have some public transport. It's just not an appropriate use for the site. I don't imagine my voice or my side of this argument will win tonight on what we've got left, but I oppose the motion. The only reason I wasn't going to move the officer recommendation, Councillor Payne, was because it was out of courtesy for the ward councillor to, as has been the protocol for many, many years, to allow the ward councillor to move the motion. And I wasn't sure which way you were going to move at all, but I just sort of thought you should get the first option to move the motion because it is in your ward. So I won't be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Can I just confirm from what you said that you're foreshadowing you would move the recommendation if this fails? Thank you. Councillor Stockman.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, after what we saw the other week and again tonight, just basically the feeling that I get, I can't support this motion, and some of that goes, and it is a hard call because obviously all the things that both councillors, Payne and Egan, said were swinging me towards one way, but I think even if we look outside of the council chambers here, there's some open space, and there was a proposed hospital go here, and the community spoke and with a lot of passion about that open space, which I actually voted against the hospital at the time to preserve that open space. So I won't be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Well, I'll speak to this as well. And this is an incredibly difficult... you'll get a right to reply after I've spoken, Councillor Payne. This is an incredibly difficult one for us as a council. When the consultation comes back and it's 50-50, which this one was, some may say it was 54-46 or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's within the margin of error, it's 50-50. So whatever you decide, you're going to upset someone. And I've had friends from both sides coming to me with very strongly held views. It puts you in a position where you know you're really going to have to upset somebody. But we all have to make the decision that we think is in the best interest of the community. And I think it really shows that we've all thought that through, because we've all five of us have sat here now and said what we think, given justification for our decision. And while we may have landed on different conclusions, we all have the community's best interests in the front of our minds. I think that's really important to remember, and I can't fault any councillor for the way they might vote on this tonight. I won't be supporting the motion. It was a very difficult decision to make, but having listened to the merits of the arguments made in the submissions, what I found was there was one group saying, please give us this, and another group saying, please don't take away something we already have. And to me, I think the latter stacks up so much more strongly. It is, it's never something somebody wants to see, for a piece of open space, the reserve near their home, to be taken away and to lose access to that. And this would significantly alter a reserve that is used by so many people, as Councillor Perkins alluded to. And I think that is really what's been the deciding factor for me. I do not oppose an urban farm, and I think the work that LFC do is fantastic, and it's to be applauded. But the question we're asking tonight, because I think all of us as councillors can agree that we'd love something like this to go ahead in Nillumbik, that's not what we're questioning. The question we're asking tonight is this parcel of land a suitable location? And based on the input that we've had from the community, and I read every submission, it took me a long time, read every single submission. I weighed up the pros and cons. I've listened to all the people who've phoned and emailed me over the last few days since the papers came out and people saw what the recommendation was. And I've landed on the conclusion that this is not the right parcel of land. But I would love to see a project like this one progress, just not on this site. And that's not to go without acknowledging the huge amount of work that LFC have put into this. And I'm very sorry that this is another dead end, but I encourage them to keep going with the wonderful work they're doing and to advance this project, because there will be a good site and there will be a time when this can go ahead. It's just not now. Wow, 3 minutes exactly. All right, I'll put that one to... Oh, Councillor Payne, sorry. Round of reply.
That's okay. Look, it seems like the numbers are in anyway, so just to reply, an urban farm can't happen outside the urban boundary. That's called a farm. We've got those. This needs to happen in the urban area. I don't see that this would threaten passive open space at all. Broccoli makes no more sound than grass, and we can grow food. And I think that's just an important thing that we need to realise and will need to realise going into the future. So I appreciate everyone's arguments. I understand where I stand at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. All right, now I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? And those against? And that is not carried. It's lost. That is lost. And I'll look for another motion from Councillor Perkins.
I'll move that Council 1 do not support the proposal of an urban farm at 2 Bell Street, Eltham, and 2 do not provide written consent to LFC to make a planning permit application.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Stockman. Councillor Perkins.
Look, it is regretful to have to come to this because I think, in accordance with the Mayor, LFC do fantastic work. Chris Chappell especially is very passionate. I know he plays a very, very long game, and he would have been involved in the original master plan when he was on council at the time, and I'm sure he's had this bubbling away for many, many years. And I'm sorry that it's not going to come off, but there were competing uses for the site. And certainly from what I heard, it seemed that more of the community were supportive of retaining the public open space. Eltham is a very, very different community to the one I represent. It's almost every issue becomes an Eltham civil war, and there's 50% for or 50% against a proposal. At other parts, Diamond Creek, it would probably be 80% for and maybe 20% against. But I do respect the fact that Eltham residents are very, very passionate, and they're very, very connected, and they're very effective in getting their views across, particularly when it comes to the green wedge and open space. So I think that community activism, should be supported, and it's certainly very, very effective. I think I would otherwise have gone along with the proposal. Certainly, the officer recommendation hasn't helped it either, but it was really the community that I listened to, those ones that were making an awful lot of sense. But it's fair to say that those supporting the urban farm were making a lot of sense as well. I was just a bit concerned. There are other stuff to do with, perhaps parking. There was a bit of concern about whether or not the high school were as on board as what some people were saying. There were some concern around, toilets and other sort of built form and built structure and what would happen to the shed. At the time, I think the Eltham community were very happy with the master plan that was put in front, which didn't propose an urban farm. It was a community farm, quite different. So again, that master plan, at the time I was on council when that came through, and I sort of thought, this is all right. They basically don't want anything. If it was Diamond Creek, they would have wanted, Ferris wheel, perhaps. But anyway, I'll put the motion up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Stockman?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to support this motion that Councillor Perkins is putting up. And I do thank the officers for looking into this. It's a very tricky situation we're putting in as councillors, and it is so 50-50 that it makes it very hard. I just think that the 50%, well, I assume the 50% that are against it probably live a little bit closer, and they do use that open space a lot more, and that's not taking anything away from the 50% that want the farm, which I think is a great idea. But I'll support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Any other councillors? All right, I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? And that is carried. All right, I'll move us on to the next item, which is the Communication Strategy 2022 to 2025 Annual Action Plan Update. We'll just let Councillor Eyre back in the room before we begin that item. Welcome back, Councillor Eyre. So we're just on to the Communication Strategy Annual Action Plan Update. I'll look for a motion.
Thank you.
Councillor Eyre.
Just getting my laptop to turn on. The recommendation that Council notes the Communication Strategy 2022 to 25 Year 1 Action Plan Report, and 2, endorses the Communication Strategy 2022 to 25 Year 2 Action Plan.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. Communication is really important for everything we do in life, but even more important for council with its community. So this strategy is to enhance the connection between our residents and the information they seek from council regarding programs, services and decisions. And the way they receive that information needs to be easy and accessible. And so that's why I'm really behind this strategy. Of the 36 priority actions, 23 of these actions were included in Year 1. The Year 2 action plan comprises a total of 26 priority actions, including the continuation of 15 ongoing. Through the Positive Ageing Advisory Committee, we had a subcommittee that also worked on looking at the way council communicates with its community. And I like to think that we can do a really good job, that community can feel supported and heard and be able to share that information. And so this is why this strategy is really important, is for communication, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ayer. Councillor Egan?
No, happy. I think poor councillor is having trouble with communication, talking about the communication strategy, but totally in support of this particular issue.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Programme Phase 4, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Chair. I move that Council 1 notes the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program Phase 4 funding allocation of $1.165 million, $1,165,509, excluding GST, and 2, approves the projects listed in Attachment 1 for submission to the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications and the Arts.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'll look for a seconder.
Happy to second, Mayor.
Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, so this is this is a really good news motion, I think, and I'm happy to put this one up without reservation. It really is to endorse the proposed projects in Phase 4, Local Roads Community Infrastructure Phase 4. So as we said, about $1.65 million in 2 parts. Part A is $739,000, and that can be spent on either local roads or community infrastructure projects. And Part B, a further $426,000 on eligible local roads projects. So there's a number of projects right across the Shire. The ones that caught my eye, of course, at this phase in my council career, are those that pertain to Alice Ward. Alice, Diamond Creek. So Youth Hub accessibility works, $155,000 out of Part A. So $155,000 we're looking to fund. Well, it should provide additional funding to complete the project, and the allocation will be assigned to accessibility works. So accessible toilets, facilities, ramps, people of all ages, all abilities being able to attend the facility. There's some other accessibility works in the accessibility package, and that includes access paths, accessible barbecue and accessible drinking fountains. And there's 2 in my ward that are proposed. James Cook Drive Reserve. They'll get an installation of accessible path leading to accessible picnic setting and playground. That'll cost about $2,000. And in Rotary Park, in Watkins Street there, right in the heart of Diamond Creek, we'll get an installation of accessible barbecue and picnic setting, $15,000. And it's good that in recent times, speaking to our Chief Operating Officer, Vince, who's not here tonight, but I'm sure will be watching, he's done some great work in terms of when we do projects, we try to complete them. In the past, sometimes you can imagine that we've put an accessible picnic setting, but no accessible path to it. So it's great having accessible equipment, but no way to access that accessible equipment. But anyway, cheerio to Vince. Shelterford Diamond Creek Park Run as well. So this is $35,000 for a shelter near the shared bridge into Marngrook Oval. That shared trail bridge is actually the Rotary Bridge that was funded by Diamond Creek Rotary at the cost of about $120,000 about 10 years ago. So like Diamond Creek Rotary have done fantastic work, and an old friend of mine, Warwick Leeson OAM, asked me to shout out to him and congratulate him on the recent town fair in Diamond Creek, the Rotary Town Fair. So Rotary do great work, and that is the Rotary Bridge there next to Margaret Oval. And he actually presented himself as the king of Diamond Creek, which is a bit undermining for me. But anyway, he was quite proud of it. And some people waved and other people gesticulated in other manners. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I think we did need a bit of comic relief at this point in the meeting. Councillor Egan.
I can't possibly top that. Sorry.
Well said. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. Hopefully I can get my words out this time, Councillor Egan. I'm struggling with my communication. So I just want to say I'm really excited about this program and what it offers for Swipers Gully Ward. So there's 2 items in here for residents. We've got the Parsons Road footpath extension, which is for $55,000. But what it's giving to residents is it's a new footpath link to the Aqueduct Trail. So it goes from Pipers Crescent to Leanne Drive. And this footpath will certainly allow residents ease of getting up to the aqueduct rather than walking on the road and be a safety risk. But also for those who are mobility impaired or with prams, it's certainly not slipping in the mud that is there currently. The other part of this, which is really exciting too, is the Leanne Drive Parsons Road footpath extension to the aqueduct. So it's kind of creating a little bit of a triangle without the bottom part. I don't know how to explain it, but basically these 2 paths will finish off the footpaths leading up to the aqueduct, and we know how much our community loves the Aqueduct Trail. So this one will start at 55 Leanne Drive and go all the way up into Parsons Road to connect to the Aqueduct Trail, and that is $455,509. So I'm really happy that Swipers Gully is getting these upgrades, because I have received a lot of residents asking for this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll speak briefly on that one. Just to say I'm very excited to see some money for Kangaroo Ground Tennis Club, who've been crying out for works, particularly in their car park, for quite some time. They've had a lot of issues with drainage there, and we're upgrading and asphalt sealing the existing gravel car park, including drainage works, for $150K. So really pleased to see that outcome. It will be really good for the club. And also happy, as Councillor Eyre mentioned, to see some footpaths going in on Parsons Road. We both share research, and while the aqueduct runs through Councillor Eyre's ward in Swipers Gully, a lot of residents on my side of research in Sugarloaf Ward love to use that aqueduct and love to loop around, and there's a great circuit that you can do along the aqueduct and back down Parsons, and having those footpaths there, creating that connection, is great for walkability, active transport, and just giving people a way of getting out there and staying fit and healthy. So that's a really good outcome as well, and really looking forward to the results. All right, I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. All right, the next item is the Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation, Planning and Environment Act 1987. And I will look for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move that Council in the exercise of the powers conferred by Section 147(4) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 resolves that A, the Nillumbik Shire Council staff referred to in the Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation in brackets Planning and Environment Act 1987 and Attachment 1 be appointed and authorised as set out in the instrument. The Common Seal of Council be affixed to the instrument, and the instrument comes into force immediately after the Common Seal of Council is affixed to the instrument and remains in force until Council determines to vary or revoke it.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Perkins.
Look, this is really quite procedural and just needs to be updated over time, and it's really just a list of all the officers in the Planning Department of Council, and this motion will give those officers' status in terms of their officers under the Planning and Environment Act 1987, as I understand it. So I think it's just a formality, something that needs to be done as we have staff changes in and out over time. The instruments just get updated accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Eyre? Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the informal meetings of councillors' records for the 26th of September 2023, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Eyre?
Thank you, Mayor. The Council, in accordance with item 20 of Council's Governance Rule, Meeting Procedures, receives the informal meetings of councillors' records in attachment 1 for the meetings held.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Eyre?
Only to say that there's 10 meetings listed here. It just shows how busy we are outside of official council meetings. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Egan? Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Which moves us on to notices of motion. We do have one notice of motion tonight from Councillor Eyre. So I'll throw it to Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. I was going to say it's the wrong one. So this is the Nillumbik Kangaroo Harvesting Program. That Council 1 notes community concern regarding the cruelty involved in the kangaroo harvesting program run by the state government, and 2, requests that officers brief council on the program and potential advocacy to state government in October 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Perkins. Councillor Eyre?
Thank you, Mayor. So what's this notice of motion about? It's asking for our environment team to examine the issues and to brief councillors in October 23. So the facts is that there's been strong pressure in the community and strong community support to look into this issue. I have, and I'm sure all the other councillors have as well, as received numerous emails and phone calls on this issue. There is currently 12,700 signatures on an online petition started on change.org by Liesl Schnuckel, who's a local St Andrews resident. And there is also over 400 signatures on a paper petition done locally. So community's concern is that over 65,000 kangaroos have been targeted to be killed in Nillumbik and the central region under the state government kangaroo harvesting program. The current kangaroo harvesting program is due to finish at the end of this year and currently under review. The call from the community is to have Nillumbik, the Greenwedge Shire, to be removed from the next plan. But with this notice of motion, I'm asking council officers to brief councillors in October and to investigate the issue further and look at advocacy options. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Perkins?
Yeah, look, happy to support the motion, Chair. Basically, just to learn more about the program and, even more generally, the parameters or restrictions around discharging of firearms in residential properties in Nillumbik, for whatever reason. I think, I'd certainly like to know more. I know if someone wants to have a burn off in Nillumbik, they certainly have to advise their neighbours. I'm not sure if there's still those restrictions apply to someone who wants to shoot something that's running or bouncing past. Unfortunately, some people do just like to go out and shoot things. They see that as a way to relieve stress, and they've had a bad day at work, so let's grab the rifle and go and take some shots at some animals or whatever's bouncing past. And I think we should try to discourage that wherever possible. So I would like to learn more about the kangaroo harvesting program, but also just the rules and where council fits into proper use of firearms, and if there's anything that we can do to discourage the use of firearms as a mechanism to relieve stress, because that's effectively, a lot of people see it as a recreational activity. on their acreage where it's rural conservation zone, as the mayor's pointed out, and it seems to be in conflict sometimes with people's right to bear arms in Nillumbik and shoot things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors? Councillor Egan.
Yes, I'm in total support. I think the conversations we had in the briefing showed that nobody has a clue what the reality of this is, and I suspect that, again, we've got more misinformation and disinformation, and I'd like to know the facts. In my group where I live, there's 24 properties, and we talk about all things from shooting to what bin week it is, red or yellow, because I always forget. And only one out of that whole street, Miss Councillor Perkins, shoots, and he gets grief all the time from the rest of us. So I think it's not all of the rural residents go out and want to take pot shots, much as I'd like to sometimes, but I don't. I think the numbers there are slightly exaggerated. But getting back
Just
to the...
personal explanation, Mayor, I at no point said all of rural Nillumbik like to run around shooting things.
many.
Well, I'm not even sure I said that. But
Well, that's good. I got that impression. I'm glad to hear that you've changed your mind.
All right, I'll might bring it back into order. Councillor
Just to
Egan.
finish up, I think based on the conversations we had, nobody, and we're all totally confused about what this actually is. So once again, we need the correct information to make an informed decision. So I'm more than happy to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? I'll speak briefly on this one as well. So, look, this motion pertains to the kangaroo harvesting program. It doesn't pertain to any programs run by Nillumbik Council. It does not pertain to the Authority to Control Wildlife Act. This is a very individual and specific program run by the state government. That's what it is. And it's all there in the name. It's a harvesting program. It's commercial harvesting and slaughter. It is not about controlling population numbers. It is not about the environment. It is about harvesting and turning kangaroos into pet food. That is what the state government are doing. And this motion is noting the concern within the community when people see this cruelty happening right here in the Green Wedge Shire. Now, we're not questioning whether numbers need to be controlled. That's something that we'll find out through our biodiversity strategy review that we're doing right now. What we're questioning here is the cruelty of this specific program, and it's not a program for controlling numbers. It's a program where shooters can go onto private land with permission from the landowner, shoot a whole bunch of kangaroos, collect the carcasses, sell them for pet food, and make a profit that way. There is very little regulation and enforcement around the way that they do the shooting. They are supposed to bludgeon the joeys to death, which is supposed to be the most humane way to kill them. If you've killed the parent, you can't leave the joey alive because it slowly starves and dies. They often don't do that. The joeys are left to suffer. There's very little evidence that the state government are making sure that those shooters do the right thing by the animals that they kill. And so it's an incredibly cruel program. It's a horrible way for those kangaroos to die. And it's not the only way to control numbers. If we need to control numbers, there are ways of doing it far more humanely than this. It is a cruel program. It is designed to make a profit. It is not designed to benefit our natural environment. And so what this motion is about is learning more about it, getting some more information through a briefing, and then we can make a decision about whether we advocate to the state government to have the program removed from Nillumbik. It's not a decision that we as a council can make. It's a state government program. The state government have to call it off. But as a council, we can advocate, and this motion sets the wheels in motion for us to get all the information we need to begin that advocacy, if that is what we choose to do. So this is the start of some important conversations which we will have at our briefing in October. All right, and with that I'll put this motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. There are no delegates' reports. There's no supplementary or urgent business. But we do have a confidential report. Before I look for a motion, I'll just pass over to the CEO to redeclare a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Chair, and I do just reconfirm that material conflict of interest, it being around the CEO contract and performance. So I will absent myself from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. All right, I'll look for a motion to move us into confidential.
Happy to
Councillor
move
Payne?
the motion that we move to confidential.
As per papers.
As per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder.
Happy.
Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne? Councillor Egan? Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you to everyone who's stayed with us tonight. It's been a long one, but it's been wonderful to have you here. We'll now close